Well, here we are. After so many episodes, we have finally come down to these epic, awesome markers. On my right hand side, the Graphit B markers go up against the Ohuhu markers on my left hand side. Which one of these titans are most worth it at their price points? That is what we are here to find out on this episode of Cheap versus Expensive. Let's go. What's going on YouTube? My name is ADCArtAttack, his name is Bob, and welcome back to a brand new episode. I can't begin to tell you just how excited I am for today's episode. This should be our closest episode yet, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. You see, I finally got the 120 Ohuhu brush pen collection, and it's pretty compact. It comes in this tiny little box that's pretty sexy. Yeah. Let's have a quick look. Oh, that was awful. Oh, that was worse. Oh, that was pretty good. Look at that. That's pretty, right? Now this entire collection of the Ohuhu brush markers will run you a cost of $100, pretty much no matter where you are in the world. In the EU, $100, and in the US, $100. You can also buy these pens individually for a price point of $2 each, but only a few of them are available individually, which is, I don't know why, but yeah, only a few. And going up against them, we have this collection of Graphit B markers. Inside this pack, we have 96 markers that come in at a price point of $200, including this display case. Now that price point is for those of you living in the EU. If you are living in the US, however, this collection will cost you $500, which is really expensive for this collection. You can also buy these pens individually at a price point of around $5.50 in the US and around $2 in the EU. That's pretty pricey. There's really not much more for me to say in this intro, but I would like to remind you at the end of the video to leave your comment down below letting me know which one of these markers is most worth it at their price point and what you think of the overall results. So with that all being said, let's get started with today's episode of Cheap versus Expensive. Let's go. Now, before we get on with using these markers today, I wanted to do a quick rundown on each of the markers. I will not be subjecting you to me testing these markers out because we have done that plenty of times on this channel. If you do want to see those videos, you can check them out, previous videos and such. Or you can just wait right there and I'll be using them in just a moment. But first things first, looking at these two pens side by side, they are almost identical. There is very little difference between these two pens, except for the design structure. The Graphit B pens have a triangular grip, which is a very nice grip, very comfortable grip, and I do like it. They also have a little bit of a different design in that the ends of these pens have a fine liner, which is very unique and very rare to see on an alcohol marker. On the other end, we have a standard brush nib, which is actually very good and of very high quality. The Ohuhu markers are very similar in design, however they have this sort of high gloss finish on them and they're quite slippery. On the one end of the Ohuhu markers, we have the broad nib, which is very common with alcohol markers, and it is a fantastic nib, one I very much enjoy using. And on the other side, we have the brush nib, which it's a very good nib and I do like it a lot. Now the ends of these pens are very different. The Graphit B right here only has a number code, whereas the Ohuhu have a number code and the color, which I think is much better. Anyway, that's about it. So let's get drawing and let's get started and that's it. Hello. So, for today's comparison drawing, I'm going to be using Goku Super Saiyan Blue from the Dragon Ball Super universe. I should mention that this drawing today was done as part of a live stream on my second YouTube channel, ADCArtAttack 2. That is the channel where I mostly live stream my drawings before they become videos over here. It's a great place for us to interact with each other on a deeper level and for us to just communicate while I do my drawing and for you to get a little behind the scenes on how I create my drawings. Just thought I should mention all of that. Let's get started with using the Graphit B markers first. Let's go. So for today's test of these markers, I've decided to do something I have not done in a long time and B in this series. I'll be doing cell shading, also known as block coloring. which is the method of coloring whereby you layer the colors without blending on top of each other or next to each other to achieve those shades and shadows. Now, the reason I have opted for this specific style in this video today is we have used these markers in the past in this series and other videos, each time utilizing a full blending style. So I don't think we need to do that today. I will touch on the abilities to do so and showcase examples throughout this video. However, I want to take a closer look at the pigmentation and the bleeding of these markers. And so first thing I'm going to touch on is something I never have, and that is the color picking. Usually when blending, I don't care too much for accurate color picking. I trust my skills to adapt, so I just grab and go. But for this style of coloring, accuracy is key. So I have to test the colors, I have to think more and plan more. The last time we used these graphite markers, I never realized a lack of certain colors, mainly the orange. There's one. And at first glance, there's nothing even close. So I have to go through many scribbles to find the colors I need. However, once that tedious task is done, we can start moving on to the actual using of these pens. And now, cell shaded is a fantastic way of testing these markers at their core. Layering these colors is a treat. They work super well, and for our base layer, I'm doubling up here. I'm double layering because we want to maximize the coverage and get the best of the pigment out of these markers. Now, double layering is something I usually reserve just for the base layer, the primary layer. It gives me a solid base to work with while giving me a strong coverage and great tone. And speaking of those tones, these skin tones within this set are actually beautiful. There is enough variety here that you could achieve varying tones and shades without too much difficulty. But these markers have a secret weapon. This is one of the quirks of these pens that most other alcohol markers do not have, and that is the inclusion of a fine liner. So we must use it for today's comparison, and I actually want to. These fine lines and small details are the perfect situation for such a nib. They have a slower ink flow than the brush, and while skill will dictate which achieves a finer line of the two ends, there's certainly more consistency and control using a fine liner or this fine liner in these situations. And so, as we move into those bright colors, you can really appreciate the pigmentation here. They are stunning. They look clean, they cover well, and one of the surprising things is, we get clear and crisp color separations through those layers. I mean, just look at them. The edges are smooth, there's no bleeding into each other, which is absolutely amazing considering I am using sketch paper. And now, while during the color picking phase of this video, I did mention the difficulties with the orange, being that there was only one orange, I was able to find other colors that did work with I did manage to find other colors that did work well with the orange and were able to achieve a very beautiful result with these orange. In fact, those colors worked super well. They are a great blend of vibrancy, bright colors, however, having quite a mild saturation to them that works pretty nicely, actually. It's not too artificial, and it looks nice. Moving on. The hair. My word, this green, blue, turquoise, whatever that color is, it is bright and beautiful. There has been a recurring pattern with using these markers of just vibrancy, beautiful vibrancy, yet a natural tone. It's not too artificial. There's the right level of saturation here that makes these quite appealing and really quite nice. The inclusion of this fine liner has assisted in yet another area in this hair being able to do those lines and get that clear separation of the shades without actually having to ink any of those hair strand lines in there. I'm able to do it with just the colored markers. In the end, it must be said that this looks absolutely fantastic. And I'm not talking about my style of doing the artwork or my coloring here. I'm talking about the markers themselves. They are bright, vibrant, colorful. They're quite happy, and I enjoy this piece. We're not going to stay on this one too long because we do have to jump onto the Ohuhu markers, and at the end of the video, we will compare them together and discuss them further. But right now, it must be said, this looks absolutely fantastic, and the Ohuhu markers have themselves a real challenge here, which one I don't think they're going to be able to take on. But who knows? Let's find out. Moving on. So, the Ohuhu markers. Now, I know it's Halloween coming up, but I don't feel it's right to subject you to the horrors of the Ohuhu marker color picking. The caps of these pens do not match up to the inks too well, and they give at best a very, very vague idea. So you are basically left guessing, and it's frustratingly tedious picking a color. In the end, I tried all colors that I felt were flesh tone, and the combination I ended up choosing still has issues. So let's begin. There is a huge lack of color scaling here. And what I mean by that is blending may work well, but the jumps between tones and shades is so heavy that cell shading today will involve using an extra marker to compensate for the differences. So I've actually been forced to layer a very light base to offset the third tone. And while the second tone I'm using here is pretty perfect, especially after that double layer, it looks super, super nice. It is, however, the third tone we have a serious issue with. With no subtle gradient, we jump into a deeper tone very quickly. Not only that, it's not exactly along the same color line either, but unfortunately, it is the closest we have to our second layer. Personally, I feel this is a huge disadvantage of the Ohuhu marker. In fact, many cheap markers. It's very common to have lackluster, if any, flesh tones along the pink scale. They try their best, and there are a few skin tones here, but for this specific image here today, we just don't have anywhere near the correct colors that we need. That being said, it might turn out okay once we've colored the rest of it. We'll see what happens. Also, remember those extra lines that we added using the Graphit B markers? The little lines using the fine liner to get those sort of edges of the highlights looking quite crisp and nice. It is so much more difficult using these Ohuhu brush tips. Now, the brushes of the Ohuhu 100% offer more control and firmness over the Graphit B brush. However, they are nowhere near the level of control that the fine liner variant has. Okay, so the oranges. There is something I have to say about this color. You have so many options to choose from in this collection. Whichever palette of oranges you choose is completely your decision. You have an entire range to select from. There are so many oranges within here, which is quite funny because within the Graphit B collection, there was one orange and I had to improvise the rest. So yeah, if you're looking for oranges, Ohuhu have you covered. But in all seriousness, the colors are so deep, so rich, and very, very accurate and beautiful and nice. They look clean. They're just quite happy. I really do like these oranges and the blues actually. And once again, we get those very clear separations between the colors and tones. Very crisp lines, not too much bleeding of any actually between them. So back to the hair. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, I was unable to get the same blue turquoisey colors that we got from the Graphit collection, but we're not trying to match the Graphit collection, we're trying to beat the Graphit collection. So I got this sort of minty green color. I think that these colors are pretty good. They do look beautiful, and I don't care too much for the accuracy on what it is we're drawing today. I'm just judging it based on the color pigmentation and the way these markers work. Now, despite these markers not having a fine liner, we are still able to use these brush nibs to achieve very fine lines. Typically, when doing the hair, you would use a inked pen to get those hair strands within there, but I don't feel it's necessary when using these markers. We're still able to get those very clean, crisp lines and achieve those hair strands. Okay, so here you have it, everyone. Here are the results of the Graphit B markers versus the Ohuhu brush pens. What do you think about it? Did you enjoy today's video? Do you like the results? Leave your comments down below, letting me know. Now, I know, looking at them side by side right here, it's difficult. You know, they're two different images, but let's take a close look and break it down and see the little fine details that perhaps you don't notice at first glance. Starting with the Graphit B markers. My opinion on these markers, having used them in previous videos and having a little bit of experience with them now, has not changed. They are still fantastic markers. Although we had issues finding the oranges, we were able to compensate for it and we were able to create a beautiful finish on that jacket. The flesh tones are a standout point. You actually get a solid collection of flesh tones, which is just very rare when getting cheap-ish markers. The fine liner is one of those great additions that is super rare within alcohol markers, and it really is something special and something you will love to use. However, It's a very situational thing, and I do believe that the chisel tip is something you'll miss when having this collection, so it's a give and take really. The only real negatives that I can speak of when using these markers would be the color separation that we are getting from the paper. As you can see, it's very subtle, but there is some of the paper showing through these pens despite me double layering and having several layers of color placed on top of that. But if you're like me, I do prefer the saturated look of these colors. I do love this style, and personally, I don't see it as a problem. I see it as a plus, but many people will see it as an issue. And now taking a look at the Ohuhu brush markers. These guys, these are pretty good. I mean, really, the colors just look fantastic. They are very rich, very bold, and they had an extensive array of oranges, but not so many flesh tones. Now I will say this, the flesh tone issue with these markers only is a problem when doing cell shading. If you were doing blending, I actually think it would maybe be better. I don't know, but I do think blending would work well with these ones. That being said, you do have the absolute nightmare of trying to pick your colors. Honestly, this is one of the biggest problems with the Ohuhu markers, is the stress, the time-consuming issues of using them and trying to get your correct colors. Now they do actually have a little bit of that color separation on the paper as well. You can see some of the paper showing through. It's not as big of an issue as the Graphit markers. However, it's still there, and if they weren't side by side, you probably would not notice it. All in all, these are both extremely solid markers, and I guess we are left with one question, which is, which side is worth it? The Graphit B markers coming in at a price tag of $500 if you live in the US or $200 if you live in the EU for 96 markers with a display case. Or the Ohuhu markers coming in at a price tag of $100 no matter where you are, I think. I look forward to reading all of your comments down below and finding out which one is your worth it winner. But I am sure you are waiting to find out what my opinion is of this, and I will have to say, living in the EU, the Graphit B markers in my opinion are the most worth it at their price. I feel that they suit my artistic style a little bit more than the Ohuhu ones do. But if you are someone who is looking to get into using art supplies and you want a great startup brand, then I must say that the Ohuhu is certainly the most worth it. See how I played it both sides there? Well, there we have it everyone. We are at the end of the video. What did you think about today's video? Did you enjoy it, and did you like the results? Were you surprised in any way? I look forward to reading all of your comments down below regarding which one you think is worth it at their price points. I'm not sure where we're gonna go with this series from here on out, but if there is anything you'd like to see me compare in the next episode, leave your comments down below, let me know, and I'll do my best to read them. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. My name is ADCArtAttack. His name is Bob, and I look forward to seeing you all again in the next video. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.